Friday, November the 27th, 2020. Got a little bonus show for you here on That's What G Said this weekend. There was so much racing to cover, and because of the holiday with Thanksgiving, we tried to get a show out earlier in the week, but I wanted to talk about some Saturday racing with you because there's big racing at Churchill, at Delta, at Del Mar. We've got a couple of huge stable duel contests that we're going to discuss, and then we can give out our finalized NFL plays for the week. So horse racing from Churchill, from Delta, from Del Mar. We'll talk some stable duel and then best bets for NFL Sunday here. And before we get into Churchill Downs, I have to let you know about one of the sponsors of That's What G Said, oldsmokeclothing.com. When you go to oldsmokeclothing.com and when you purchase anything there and you use the promo code GINO, you will get free shipping. Old Smoke Clothing is a culmination of a couple of buddies who are from Saratoga, who love racing at Saratoga, and they developed quality clothing and merchandise that horse racing fans who love the atmosphere and lifestyle of racing will be able to enjoy. Collaborations with top designers. They've developed innovative line of high-quality products that are rooted in iconic symbols of racing and the racetrack experience. We're talking t-shirts, hats, zip-ups, hoodies, tank tops, long sleeve, quality clothing. You can get custom designs with whatever you want. You can check out some of the special collections that they have, like the Kentucky Derby collection or the Seabiscuit collection. Don't forget about that promo code GINO. Gets you free shipping. And then the Clubhouse, folks. The Clubhouse is a $500 annual fee where you get 4 quarterly deliveries to you. It is an exclusive membership that gives you a delivery in January, in April, in July, and in October. Each package will include a t-shirt to members, custom horse racing themed gift, different package fillers. You get a headwear made exclusively for members, 20% off all orders at oldsmokeclothing.com. That's if you become a part of the Old Smoke Clubhouse. Check that out. oldsmokeclothing.com. I mean, some of your favorites. Tis the Law, Midnight Bisou, Authentic, She Dares the Devil. Represent them. Show the horse racing fan in you. Use that promo code GINO for free shipping. Let's get the Churchill Downs. We're going to get to the stakes races with Andrew Champagne, and then I'm going to go through the full Churchill Down card. Following that, I'll roll through the card real quick, each race, some thoughts on each for Churchill Downs Saturday. So Andrew Champagne and I, we talk about the 2 stakes races for Churchill on Saturday. We get in depth on those 2, and then afterwards, I'll start with race number 1, and I'll roll through the card and give you my overall thoughts. So here we go, stakes races for Churchill Saturday. Get those past performances out. Joining me to talk some Churchill Downs stakes races. It's a big weekend. We've got Churchill Downs. It's always an underrated weekend, in my opinion, the Thanksgiving weekend of racing. Churchill Downs going on with some big stakes. You got that all 2-year-old card on Saturday. I'm going to talk some Del Mar and some Delta Downs later in the card, too, all with Andrew Champagne, a man who is swinging a hot stick. He had a nice night at Del Mar earlier this week. He also did very well in a stable duel contest. It had a ton of different entries. So let's see if we can bring that mojo on over to Churchill Downs on Saturday. How was your Thanksgiving, buddy?
Well, it wasn't bad. It's actually been a pretty eventful week. Tuesday was my 7-year anniversary.
Yeah.
Wednesday was my birthday. Thursday's Thanksgiving, and now we're headed into the weekend. So I'm in a pretty good spot. You mentioned that Thursday was a pretty darn good day for me. I wound up 3rd in the free contest they ran at Del Mar that had 800 people in it. Seriously,
Yeah.
800 people. My
That was
goodness.
a great finish.
I was incredibly proud of that. I could have been second. I mulled over using a horse that ran second in a race where I ran 5th. I could have had the budget to do that. I could have run second. I was not catching the winner, however. The winner was somebody that put up 450 points.
That's a massive score.
Yeah, I mean, when you have that many people in a contest, someone is going to go crazy like that.
Yep.
But 450, my goodness, that's incredibly impressive. And if you're listening and you did it, my goodness, kudos to you. But there's a lot going on this weekend for sure, and I'm really excited to take a look at some of these races because there's some really fun horses that are going to be running.
Yeah, let's talk about the Churchill Stakes races too. It's one of those really cool Churchill cards. They do it a couple times throughout the later part of the year where it's all 2-year-olds. So it unbelievable to go through a card like this. You and I are going to focus on the stakes races at Churchill Downs, and then we're going to jump in and give some thoughts on some of the stakes races over at Del Mar and a thought or two at Delta. And those two tracks have some stable duel contests going on. So let's talk Churchill Goldenrod, race number 9. This is a grade 2 here. And what's kind of crazy about these cards too, Andrew, is like looking through the whole card, like so many of these races are comparable to the grade 2. And really what makes this the grade 2 is Simply Ravishing. That's the difference between the rest of this and the field. You know, you have a nice horse like Coach in here too. She's undefeated. She's done very little wrong. But Simply Ravishing was less than 5-2 in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. She is a grade 1 winner. She is won going long on the grass. She's won sprinting on the dirt. Which is actually the race that was taken off the grass, and she's won a grade 1 going long on the dirt. And she was a fourth where Andrew, she really could have been second if for like a slightly different, maybe a slightly better trip here. And I think, especially if you're looking at numbers and figures, she's definitely the horse you have to start with, and she's the one to beat.
That's for darn sure. Simply Ravishing hasn't done a whole heck of a lot wrong. I saw her a lot at Saratoga. She won on the turf at 14-1. Ken McPeak first-time starters do not win. So the fact that she won that race alone should have been a clue that there was a lot of talent there. They ran her in the P.G. Johnson late in the meet. They were hoping that race was going to stay on the turf, gets rained off, and they discover, oh my goodness, we have a dirt horse, because the horse won by 6.5 lengths. Didn't beat anything that day, but went to Keeneland, won the Alcibiades very impressively, albeit with a perfect trip, then goes to the Breeders' Cup. She's 2-1 that day, and she does not have a great start. She lost most of her chance at the break that day. She hadn't shown an ability to rate yet, but she still ran fourth. And as you mentioned, Gino, with a couple of bobs of heads in different directions, could have been second behind Nyquist. So not a lot wrong with that one. She's going to be tough, but I don't think she's a single in this race. I think she's a likely winner. I think she's going to be favored, but this is a 10-horse field with a lot of talent signed on. If you need to single her to keep within a budget, I understand it. But if you're playing a grid structure, there are some other horses that are Bs that I think you're going to want to throw in, at least in some way, shape, or form.
Okay, let's get to some of those. Who are some of the Bs for you?
Sure. The one that I'm really drawn to is number 3, Coach, who was undefeated for Brad Cox. Oh, no. Oh, no.
We're in some trouble. Some trouble. Hey, maybe not, Turnal. We had a couple that we were on that ran well, Breeders' Cup, so we've had some success together before. We can get a horse it's a lot of weight for a horse to carry, but maybe she's just a phenomenal filly who can carry the dead weight of you and I.
400 pounds overweight or something to that effect. But Coach is a fun filly just based on her breeding. I love this pedigree by Commissioner out of an exchange rate mare. To me, there's stamina there, and there's potential for this horse to potentially run on turf later. Exchange rate wound up being a pretty darn good turf influence on the bottom side. But they ran this horse twice at Indiana Grand. Don't know what she beat in either of those two races, but she sure looked good doing it. They ship her to Churchill to go 1 1/16, and she winds up taking to that like a duck to water. Granted, she had a really nice trip that day, but she beat a stakes quality field by 2.5 lengths. She's got some early speed, but she doesn't need the lead in order to run well. She's a professional filly, and I think she's in line to take a big step forward in this spot. The other horse that I want to spotlight is a second-time starter from the Steve Asmussen barn. That's number 6, Clairiere, who has my favorite pedigree in this field. She's by Curlin out of a mare named Cavorting, who a couple years ago was a top-class Breeders' Cup type filly or mare. She was that good. And this one looked really good first time out. She was 5.5 lengths back through some pretty slow fractions. They went 48-1 to the half. If you're a 2-year-old, it's tough enough to debut going 2 turns. Add in that she's conceding 5.5 lengths and needing to make up ground. The fact that she rallied at all is impressive. The fact that she won is really noteworthy. Asmussen's horses tend to move up with experience. There are a couple of really good works. I love the 2-back work going 5 furlongs in 1 minute and 4. That was the 11th fastest of 42 works at the distance. She's 6-1 on the morning line. I think one or both of those horses are going to get bet
Yeah.
down a little bit off of that 6-1. But while Simply Ravishing is the horse to beat, I don't think this race is as simple as Simply Ravishing and 9 other horses fighting for second.
Completely agree. It feels like it's like she's above the rest of the field for sure, and a lot of that is because of her credentials and what she's done so far, and just on how she's run faster and she's beaten and competed with a little bit better. But it feels like it's her, and then there's definitely like another tier of 4 or 5 horses that I think you could throw in the mix. You mentioned 2 of them. I'm right there with you on Coach. What I like about Coach too, Andrew, in the race you mentioned, she made her move. She hit the front, and then early to the middle part of the stretch, she had a challenge, and it looked for a second like, oh, okay, maybe she hit the front a little too quick. Maybe she doesn't want to go this far. And then she repelled that challenge and really drew off nicely, which to me means, okay, it wasn't one necessarily she just kind of fell right into a perfect spot. I think she's a nice animal, and I think she has a legitimate shot to win this thing. For the other horse I would look at, and it's kind of for sort of a reason you mentioned with Simply Ravishing, is the 9 Princess Theorem. Same kind of a case with her win on October the 30th at Churchill. It was a race that was taken off the grass. You stay in there, and all of a sudden you realize, wow, this horse might be okay on the main track, and you got to come right back here and take a shot at the track, at the trip that you ran well, because you don't really have to step up even to hit the board in here with this group and to be very competitive against graded stakes companies. So I think Princess Theorem is one that I might throw in. So for me, I kind of have the 3 as a horse. If she's over 5-1, I might put a few bucks on her to win. And I'm going to be using her with Simply Ravishing in exotics, and then I'll probably throw the 9 Princess Theorem in some of my others.
Yep, there's another bomb that I'll throw in before we move on to the Kentucky Jockey Club. If you're looking for a bigger price, I think you can do worse than number 2, No Mo Spending, a horse that's coming in from New York, has gotten better as she goes along, and there's nothing to dislike with the pedigree.
Yeah.
By Uncle Mo, out of a mare named Stop Spending Maria, who is a very good horse. That's one of many horses that Mike Rapoli named after his wife's shopping habits, which you can get away with doing when you're worth billions and billions and billions of dollars. Gino, I don't think either of us could get away with naming a horse after a bad habit of either of our main squeezes. But that is what it is. But No Mo Spending graduated 2-back, granted over New York bred, so didn't beat a whole lot there. But I thought she beat a decent field last time out at Belmont Park, and she's got the pedigree to potentially like 2 turns. Ian Wilkes horses tend to get better with experience. You don't think of him as a 2-year-old trainer, but I think this one could potentially be in a spot where she can take a step forward and maybe run 3rd or 4th at a big price.
Yeah, and my mom, actually, when we used to own horses a lot more, when my grandpa was actually really good friends with Walter Greenman before he passed away, and so my grandpa would get roped into owning a lot of different horses here and there, and so my dad would end up having pieces of ones here and there. So my mom got to name one of them, and she ended up naming it I.O. the Government. I.O. the Government. Yeah, it was great. It was a great name. We used to call him I.O. and here comes I.O. So yeah, we've been in the naming them, but we're sort of similar. Yeah, I.O. the Government on that one. So a fun goldenrod. And I do like this time of the year at Churchill because we get these races like this where these could be Kentucky Oaks fillies. That's how you look at it for next year. And when we get to the 11th race at Churchill, the Kentucky Jockey Club, we are looking at some horses who, they might be Kentucky Derby horses. They might be Triple Crown types. We don't really have I guess that's inaccurate. I was going to say we don't really have one of the top tiers, but we do. We have a horse who finished 3rd in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile and was 2nd in the Breeders' Futurity before that, but he's actually still a maiden, so that's what's kind of a little head-scratching about him. And at first glance, when you just look, like, his last number, the figure he earned in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile really does jump off the page, but the barn, something you have to mention, and the connections, jockey, trainer, who go very hot and cold, are currently cold right now at the meeting. Lots of horses running in the 2nd and 3rd, so it wouldn't be a surprise to see a horse like this who's settled for minor awards, who's already been defeated by a rival in this field, to maybe do the same in here. Where do you stand with Keep Me in Mind?
Toss. Complete and total toss for me. I will readily admit that he ran big in the Breeders' Cup. That track at Keeneland was not kind to closers. He was dead last, 17 lengths back at the first call. Winds up rallying to finish 3rd, beaten 2 lengths. He ran great. I am not knocking that effort. I'm thinking a bounce is coming.
Me too.
For any number of reasons. That was a 92 buyer speed figure. He ran an 83 two-back. I think he regresses to that form, and I don't think that form is good enough. I think there are a number of other horses that could potentially improve
They're
far
on the way
beyond
up,
that point.
for sure.
And this race does not have a lot of early speed. In fact, my strongest opinion of the entire Saturday racing program, anywhere, any track, comes in this race.
Okay.
Gino, I love Swill in this race. I think
Sure.
Swill is the lone speed. Blinkers come off, ran really well last time here at Churchill, went wire to wire, and didn't have it easy. 22-4 to the quarter, 46 to the half, finished strong under Florent Giroux, who rides back. We know Giroux is a very aggressive gate rider, and with Churchill, when the rail is good, it is very, very good. Goes 2 turns for the first time, has the pedigree to like it, and I love the work pattern. November 14th at Churchill, the two-back work, 59-4, fastest of 57 at the distance, gets a nice little stretch of the legs on November 21st, going 5 furlongs. I think Swill leads every step of the way, and I really hope we get that 6-1 morning line price. To me, he seems like the lone speed. I love the lone speed blinkers off angle. Maybe he's matured. Maybe he's able to relax. I love the fact that the second place finisher from the last race has since come back to win. I think Swill is very, very live in this race for world-class connections.
I've got Swill picked second in here. I will be using Swill in all of my exotics, and I think he's an absolute must-use in this race. The reason why I have him picked second, I'm a little worried about the 5, Inspector Frost, maybe softening him up. And in a field like this, a big field with young horses, maybe there's somebody else that ends up getting a little bit aggressive, an Ultimate Badger or someone who puts a little more pressure on him. I think if that were the case, and I'm not really even against Swill, because I think if anyone's going to steal this race, or if anyone's the fastest, the speed of the speed, it is Swill. So must use for me everywhere, but I slightly lean to King Fury in here, adding the blinkers, which I really, really like, because if you look at his form prior to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, he really doesn't have to be so far back. He can sit a little bit closer and more of a third, fourth. And so if this is a race that doesn't have a lot of speed, he's adding the blinkers, and I know he's got a little more tactical speed. I wouldn't be shocked to see them get aggressive with him, and maybe he's sitting third behind those 2 speed horses, Swill going, the 5 pressing, and then King Fury maybe third or fourth. I think he's just going to be closer. And his last race, too, the Breeders' Cup. So he was 7th on the inside. He was about 7 lengths off. He started to move up the inside, but then he ran into a horse that was backing up. And you can't, when you're a 59-1 shot in the Breeders' Cup, when you're a 50-1 shot anywhere, you're not likely going to be able to re-rally to have multiple gears. You need things to go your way for you to hit the board or to have a shot to win. Had he had a nice clean trip up the inside, he might have been able to make the sort of move that we saw with the maiden in here. You know, the horse who started to roll late with Keep Me in mind. So I think King Fury is really interesting, and especially if you're taking the approach like Andrew and I are in this race as, you know what, I'm okay with letting Keep Me in mind beat me on the win end. I do think he's probably still a horse if you're playing tries, supers, like underneath, he's probably there, but I'm much more pick 4s, pick 5s, and everything. I'm completely trying to beat him. I'll be using 2, 7 everywhere. I'll probably throw the 1 in sitting on go, because that Churchill race was really big in the Iroquois 2-back, and I'm willing to excuse some horses who have bad trips in Breeders' Cups and Kentucky Derby type races. It's difficult to win those races. So those would be probably the 3 that I'd be looking at, and in particular 2 and 7 with some 1s on the ticket, but no 4s for me on the win end, Andrew.
No, not at all. And you mentioned sitting on go. I liked sitting on go a little bit in the Breeders' Cup, coming off of that race at Churchill. The thing about the Iroquois was that race fell apart. He was 9th of 10 that day. They went 45-3 to the half, and the race fell apart. I don't think that race aged particularly well, but could Sitting on Go want to go 2 turns? And is he better than what he showed in the Breeders' Cup? He very well could be. I think the play in here is 2 with 1, 4, and 7. You mentioned King Fury. I don't hate King Fury. He's 2 for 2 at Churchill, so you know this route isn't going to beat him. Maybe he's ready for this, and maybe he gets a piece of it. But I just think Swill goes out early, and if he gets comfortable, I think he forgets to stop.
Churchill Downs stakes races, a couple of very nice ones on Saturday. Don't go anywhere, folks. We're going to take a quick break. When we return, we're going to head on over to Delta Downs, talk a little bit about Delta. There's a stakes race there. There's a stable duel contest on Saturday. So we'll be back in just a minute with more Andrew Champagne. Big thanks to Andrew. So he's with me for all the stakes races for the 3 different tracks. We talk about the Delta stakes race a little later, and then we talk about the Del Mar stakes races following that. I'm going to get through the rest of the Churchill Downs card. Let's start with race number 1 for Churchill Downs on Saturday. I'm looking at this field, maiden special weights. I kind of like the 3 a little bit. Cuzzy Wuzzy, who broke well in her most recent start. She was going 5.5 furlongs, and it was a sloppy racetrack. It was the main. She broke well, then she got a little bit outrun on the inside. She got shuffled back in the slop, and she was all the way back to dead last. She weaved through traffic and really picked up some pieces late. I thought it was a sneaky good effort. Now she's going to stretch back out to the mile, the one-turn mile. We saw her go long at Ellis Park in her second career start, and she wasn't bad that day. I think this is going to be a lot better for Cuzzy Wuzzy. She will be much, much closer than she was last time out. Cuzzy Wuzzy, the number 3, going to be on all of my tickets. I think the 10, Sirenaya, is no doubt the one that they'll all have to beat. I do look at the 12, Silk and Sugar as a horse, so I might throw into the early pick 5 and some exotics, who was towards the rear, and the inside was 8th, was about 6-7 lengths off in some traffic, and angled around and then back to the inside. It was not a bad effort. She's gone from 6 furlongs to 7 furlongs, and now going to the mile here, so has had the progression, and she will be in some of my exotics as we move along to race number 2 at Churchill Downs. I like the 8 in here quite a bit. Willful Woman. Willful Woman was 3rd in her career debut, and she hopped at the start, but she was quick. She was up afterwards. She recovered nicely. She was up to 3rd on the inside within 2 lengths. She tucked in. Then she got shuffled back a little bit. She was a fine 3rd. And now she's going to get the stretch. And she was a fine 3rd at 7 furlongs, which is not an easy distance to debut. And then you're going to stretch out to the mile and the 16th. I think she takes a big step forward in here. The number 8, Willful Woman, is a horse who I will make a win wager on. At anything over 7-2, make sure to throw her into all of those early exotics that you're playing. If you're playing that pick 5, she might be even a horse who I take a swing with and maybe a single there. We move on to race number 3. Tons of respect for the 6 Scarred, and we're going to see throughout the day a lot of these races where you have multiple horses coming back, because this is an all 2-year-old card, remember. So you're going to have horses coming back. They've all faced tons of these horses have all faced each other, and some will be in stakes, some will be in maiden races, and others in these allowance races like this 3rd. So the 6 on all my tickets. The horse who I like in here is the number 3, Cousin Larry, who won last time out at Keeneland going 6.5 furlongs. He was close up on the inside, and he was on the heels of the leader right away. I mean, he was just loaded, waiting for room. The rail opened, and he shot through. It's not easy, even when you get the opening there, because you sort of have to hesitate. You lose your momentum. I like Cousin Larry. I'll be using him in all exotics. If he's around 4-1 or so, I'll be making a win wager on him. I'm going to use him with the number 6 Scarred in all of the exotics there in race number 3. We move on to the 4th race in here. I will just be too deep in a lot of exotics with the 8, Holy Redeemer. Just mentioned Scarred. He was behind Scarred. Look who Holy Redeemer lost to in the race before that, Cousin Larry. So the 2 horses I like in the previous race both defeated Holy Redeemer. It would be kind of hard not to like Holy Redeemer in this spot, like in the other 2 in the spot before. The 7 Sheffy will be the horse I play to win if we can get, I guess, sort of the similar, right? The couple horses we like so far have all been around 6-1 morning line. So I've kind of got him at 3-1 as where I saw him pegged in this race, because to me, he really does feel like a horse who's got some upside. And after the 2 and the 8, I thought he might be the next one in here. I got some respect for Burrow, who showed some speed in the race that was taken off the grass, and he went a mile and 16th at Keeneland, finished 2nd, runner-up. Unfortunate for Joe Burrow, the big injury recently. But Sheffy was outrun early, and he was a little harder ridden to keep up, and he was back to 7th, about 7 lengths off. He made a 3-wide move. He started to get into his best stride late. He just looked like a horse who wants to go long. I think he's going to be much more settled, much more relaxed. He won't have to be ridden so hard just to keep up with this group early on. Number 7, Sheffy. We'll be using in all exotics, and I'll be playing Sheffy to win a little in race number 4. Let's move along. No real opinion in the 5th. And I mean, big card like this, big fields, I'm not going to be forcing it in every single race. So if you're playing early pick 5s and stuff like that, see, I probably won't for that reason that I just don't love this field. So skip for me in the 5th. We move on to race number 6. I'm looking at a couple horses to include in the exotics. Again, talked about Scarred earlier. Private Network coming out of that same race where he was behind Scarred. He was behind Holy Redeemer. So if those horses run well earlier on in the card, you probably want to use Private Network, who's going to be stretching out here trying the mile in an 1/8. I've got Private Network in all exotics. The horse who's the most interesting to me in here, though, is the one Royal Tryst, who was dead last, and he was double digits off in his career debut. He really got moving, but he was forced 7-8 lengths wide. He was a little bit green. That was going 7 furlongs. He was another horse who just visually, he looks like he wants to go a little bit longer. He made a big move up into it and was kind of weaving a little late. The number 1, Royal Tryst. I'm using him in all exotics. The 8, Private Network, will also be on all the tickets for me there in race number 6 as we move along to race number 7. I like the 2 in here, Corey. Corey quite a bit. She, 2-year-old filly, who was a runner-up last time out behind a horse named The Grass is Blue. 2 starts back was behind a horse named Coach, who is 3 for 3, and we're going to see Coach a little bit later on in the graded stakes race that we talk about with Andrew Champagne. Won the Rags to Riches, undefeated. In the career debut, Corey beat a Next Out Maiden Special winner. There's a lot of speed in here for her to sit off. She should be tracking nicely from the inside. So when she finished second last time out, she was 5th, 6th. She was about 3 deep, 5 lengths off. She made a 3-wide bid at the top of the lane, and she was just second best. She's going to get a great setup in here. Corey, the number 2, will be using in all exotics. Anything around 5-1. Let's make a win wager on Corey as we move along to race number 8. For me in here, a lot of question marks. Question marks on the 9, Splendid Tot, who I think can sit really nicely. Is Tid's Splendid News good enough to run a field like this just off their feet? The 2, Army Wife, I think, is another who's just going to get a nice trip. Army Wife settled in 6th in her last start. She was about 5 lengths off. She was kept in the clear. She was in the 2 path, and she was just looming up into contention without really being asked, and she had 1 horse to run down. When asked, she responded nicely and was able to get to that one. Army Wife, the number 2, anything around 3-1 will make a win wager on Army Wife in race number 8. Make sure to throw this filly into all of your exotics. In the 9th race, we talk about this one with Andrew. Coach, for me, it was Coach. It was Simply Ravishing. It was Princess Theorem as horses that I'm using in exotics there. The 10th race, the 10, Mandalonian, the number 10. Not one that I'm trying to beat in a late pick 4, late pick 5 situation. The 3 is the horse I like in here the most, Twilight Blue, who debuted on the grass. Second start, tried the main track at Churchill, was 24-1. Was tracking in 3rd inside and tried to go, got stopped, lost a little ground, then came up again through the rail. It was a really nice, visually super impressive. I love horses who are able to sit that kind of a trip because most races you are going to be in a great spot. And most races when you have the running style where you can sit just off, you're always going to be able to put yourself in a good spot. You're going to be able to sit within a few lengths behind the leaders. Number 3, Twilight Blue, anything around 5-1. We'll make a win wager there on that one in race number 10. At Churchill, the 11th race, the Kentucky Jockey Club, spoke about that one with Andrew. For me, it is King Fury over Swill as my top 2 in there. I'll also use Sitting on Go and some others, but I'm okay with playing against keeping me in mind on the win end. So that is Churchill Downs for you on Saturday. Didn't really love anything in the 12th, and again, for me, as someone who will kind of play race by race by race, I don't mind sitting one or two out in there. Good luck, folks, on a great Churchill Downs Saturday card of all 2-year-olds. Black Friday sales everywhere. Now is the time to get in touch with Cindy Carava, the full-service realtor. If you have been thinking about anything in the world of real estate, she is the lady you need to get in touch with. She can help you in many different ways: selling, purchasing, leasing. She can help you find vendors, handyman, painters, landscapers, gardeners that she personally uses. Do you need help getting pre-approved for a home loan? She can connect you with those lenders that she works closely with and highly recommends, covering all parts of the San Gabriel Valley, North San Diego County, Del Mar, Solana Beach, Rancho, Santa Fe. You can find her all over social media: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, reviews about her on Yelp and Zillow. But CindyCarava.com is the website, CindyCarava.com. Right now, the Black Friday special that she has going on, if you list, purchase, or refi your home with Cindy by December the 31st, so this sale goes all the way to the end of 2020, she will compensate you for up to $1,500 for services, including appraisal, physical inspection, and home warranty. She wants to get you and your family into a new home this holiday season. For more information, give Cindy a call, 626-394-6400. On to Delta Downs. So Delta Downs has a huge stable duel contest on Saturday. What Delta Downs has been doing, what Stable Duel has been doing for Delta over the week is Tuesday. It's called the Turkey Bowl series. It was a 4-part series that started on Tuesday. Tuesday contest, Wednesday contest, Friday contest. They all filter into the Saturday, the main event. What Stable Duel is doing is they're matching half of the pools from each of the first 3. They're going to put those into the pool along with all the money that is in for the $50 entries on Saturday. $50 to enter at Delta Downs. Andrew and I are going to talk about the feature, the stakes race there, and then following that, I'm going to go through the full card at Delta, give you some quick thoughts on every race, a couple horses that I think may be possible to use, so you can use them in however you want for your handicapping. If you're playing Stable Duel contest, if you're playing pick 4s and pick 5s, playing to win, I'll go through a quick run through the entire card following this conversation we have with Andrew. So make sure to get involved in that huge Stable Duel contest. There's going to be a ton of money from earlier in the week. It's like a carryover. It's like a 4-day carryover, basically, because half of the pool has carried over, half of the pool again that Stable Duel is filtering into this. So it's basically like carried over all this free overlaid money in the pools. Make sure to get involved. Andrew and I are going to talk Delta Downs Saturday. We're going to talk about the stakes race, the Delta Mile coming up now. Following that, you're going to get my thoughts on the full card for Saturday Delta. A big Saturday at Delta Downs. My old friends in Vinton, Louisiana, they open back up this week. So Andrew Champagne's going to talk about the stakes race they have coming up on Saturday. And Andrew, what's important about the Delta Saturday card versus just a nice card over in Vinton is that there is going to be a Stable Duel contest. What's cool about Stable Duel, they're always kind of trying these new different things, and they had a tweak to their contest this week. It was a Turkey Bowl series at Delta that went on Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, and now Saturday will be the finale. And what Stable Duel is going to be doing is they are going to be matching half of the pool that was on Tuesday, half of the pool from Wednesday, half of the pool from Friday. They're going to put that all into the Saturday pool, along with whatever the Saturday pool is. So there's going to be a ton of money up for grabs at Stable Duel on Saturday at Delta Downs. It's just a big Saturday over there.
It is indeed. One thing to note, if you're handicapping the card, if you saw this on Friday, you know it. It poured in Vinton, Louisiana. I believe it drove Don Stevens to such great lengths that he started singing in the booth. I don't know if he was trying to do a Gene Kelly singing in the rain bit, but handicap for at least some element of a wet track, most likely. Check the weather forecast, obviously, but chances are that track will have some moisture in it by the time the Delta Mile rolls around, even as race 8 on the program.
Okay, so Very good to note as we get to race number 8. And I mean, you just got to mention too, Carl Broberg, who has been the leading trainer in North America for 5, 6, 7 years. He's perennially been that since like 2013, 14 or so. He has had just an unbelievable start to this meeting over the first 3 or 4 days. It is absurd. So you have to really start in this race, at least from a talking point, with Hunk of Burning Love, who, man, this guy got really, really good this year, Andrew. And up until his last start at Remington, the only really poor race he had on the page was a race that was going on the grass at Lone Star. Everything else was good. I mean, really good from May through September, but he tailed off a little bit. Now he's coming back. He's a little fresh. We haven't seen him in 2 months. This is, when you just look at the morning line in here, a 3-1 lukewarm morning favorite in Pioneer Spirit, and Pioneer Spirit has been defeated by Hunk of Burning Love the last couple times they raced. It'll probably be those two who take the bulk of the wagering. I'd imagine Mosito Rojo from the outside, who just loves to win races and who has more of an advantage at Delta than the other two, being a 7-time winner over this racetrack. It's probably those three taking a lot of the money, and as far as like the top tier of contenders to start with.
Yup. The thing to note here is if you subscribe to the notion that pace makes the race, a lot of the likely favorites are going to be in big trouble. Number 3, Stevens Answer, wants to go to the lead. He's 4 for 5 at Delta, has the talent to win, but needs the lead. Hunk of Burnin' Love has won 6 times this year, some in dominating fashion, has won over a wet track, needs the lead in order to run well. Pioneer Spirit has tailed off a little bit, but has also been running against really good horses. You see Mr. Money, you see Tom's D'Etat, you see Night Ops, who's a pretty darn good horse. You see Bank It a couple of times, Warrior's Charge. He needs the lead. I think this has the recipe for a pace meltdown. You mentioned Mosito Rojo. I'm going to use Mosito Rojo, but he is not my top selection. My top selection is a horse that'll actually be a bit of a bargain as far as stable duel goes, and that's number 7, Jack the Umpire.
Yeah.
Jack the Umpire is the ultimate horse for course at Delta Downs, which is, of course, a bull ring. Some horses move way, way, way up on bull rings. This guy is one of them. He is 3 for 3 at Delta Downs, 2 stakes wins. He won an allowance race, actually, by 8 1/4 in the slop here at Delta. Won the Jean Lafitte last year by 3 lengths while being in hand late. Probably could have won by more than that. And then he won by nearly 6 earlier this year in the Big Drama. I think this is exactly what Jack the Umpire wants to do. He tried a pretty tough turf spot, actually, last time out in the Murphy at Pimlico on Preakness Day. He was beaten just 3 lengths by some decent horses. Now, he's a 3-year-old against older, so maybe the maturity isn't quite there, whatever. I think that's baked into the price, and I think Jack the Umpire gets exactly the setup he wants in this race over the track he wants to run on. If it's wet, that's not going to be a problem. He's 2 for 2 over a wet track. I think there is a ton to like with Jack the Umpire. He's my top pick. I picked Mosito Rojo second. A lot to like with that one as well. 7 for 10 at Delta, has won over a wet track, wants to run late, will get that kind of setup. And while he does break from host position 10, it should be noted that the mile at Delta has a pretty long run into the first turn, so he might be a little bit wide, but he's not going to be 6 or 7 wide going right into the first turn.
Yep.
So he should have some time to work out his own trip. I'm 7-10-9 in here. Pioneer Spirit, I think, has a shot dropping down in class, but that drop in class isn't as big as it would appear on paper because, Gino, for a $100,000 stakes race, this came up really salty.
It did. This is a tough spot, and I'm very similar with you. I have 3 that I'll be using all over the place. I'm a little more forgiving, I think, to Hunk of Burning Love, because when I watched his race last time out, going 6 furlongs, everybody, and this might happen in this race, sort of like you said, but everybody lined up on the lead, and then he tried to take back a little bit, and he just got outrun down inside. He couldn't re-rally, and that wasn't a bad field either. Seven Nation Army, Mr. Moneybags, Chief Cicatriz, that's not a bad group, and I think he's just a little bit better going a little longer, because look at the half. They went 44-1. That was way faster than he'd been going recently. He just got outrun a little bit there, to be completely honest. I think he might be okay sitting a bit. So I'm using I've got Mosito Rojo as my top selection, the 10. I've got Hunka Burning Love as my second selection. I've got the 7 Jack the Empire for many of the reasons that you said as the third horse I'll be using in all the exotics. He should get a great trip. Yeah. He's not quite as fast as a couple of the others in here, so I could see him end up sitting third, and maybe getting a jump on Mosito Rojo here. So I'm a little against Pioneer Spirit. I think he might just be sort of, maybe the freshening helps him out a little because he seems like he's training a little better, and he worked really nicely here at Delta, but he had some good races earlier in the year. We talked about the barn, who has been struggling a little bit, and they are not having the best start at Churchill. They go hot and cold. He might be over the top, and he was beaten on the square by Hunka Burning Love a couple different times. So I'm okay with playing against him. I'm more inclined to use 10 Mosito Rojo everywhere, 4 Hunka Burning Love, and the 7 as you like, Jack the Umpire. So pretty similar for us here in the Delta Mile.
Yeah, the one thing to note with Pioneer Spirit, and this would be why I would at least use him defensively. For one, he's 4 for 9 over a wet track with 3/3, so any moisture in the track isn't going to hurt him. He had a work November 18th at Delta. Most half-mile works at Delta are not quick. There's a short stretch at Delta down, so they don't really have a lot of time to accelerate towards the wire or accelerate around the backstretch. You don't see a lot of half miles going much faster than 50 seconds. He went 48-2. Anywhere else that doesn't turn heads, at Delta, it does. I think this is a case where he may very well have found that he likes Delta Downs a lot. He's never run over this surface before, so we don't know for sure. But if that work is any indication and he runs back to that, I think he'll be tough. The question is, A, can he make the lead? B, if he doesn't, can he rate? At 3-1, that's a little short for my liking, whereas Jack the Umpire is double the price, and we know he likes Delta Downs. We know he likes an off track. The blinkers come on, and he should get the race shape. So for a value standpoint, both parimutually and unstable duel, I think Jack the Umpire is a very appealing option.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, when we're looking at this field from a stable duel standpoint, like I think, and from so I'm fine with taking a shot stable duel wise against Pioneer Spirit in that I would prefer any of the other 3 I mentioned. Jack the Umpire, who at 6,000 would be 6-1 would be 5,000 for you. Mosito Rojo, who at 9-2 would be 6,500, and then at 4-1, Hunka Burning Love would cost you 7,000. So those would be some of the horses that I would be looking to use in your stable duel in this stakes race. And because one of the keys too, Andrew, is a key, just one of the general things I look for in stable duel, sniffing out the morning lines that I think are a little bit off. If there's a horse, because that's what you're paying for. Remember, you're paying for their morning line. If there's a horse that's 8 or 10-1 that you think they're going to, even if you don't love the horse, honestly, if you think they're going to go off at half of their morning line price, it just makes sense to use them because you're getting value based on the fact you're getting a 4-1 shot instead of the 8-1 shot you paid for.
Exactly. And we'll talk a little bit in the Del Mar segment about a couple of horses that I think will go off far shorter than their morning lines. That's part of the fun of stable duel, is picking something that maybe the person setting the morning line either didn't see, didn't account for, sees differently than you do. It's an added layer of strategy for sure.
Okay, we're going to head over to Del Mar, a couple stakes races that we'll be talking about over at Del Mar. So stay tuned, folks. We'll be back in just a minute with more stakes action. Big thanks to AC for helping us out there with the Delta Downs feature for Saturday. Let's go back in time a little bit to race number 1 at Delta Downs. So a couple horses who I'm looking at in the opener. What I like with the 6 Spendaholic is you got the recency of a recent race here. You obviously got the 7 with the Young Hendrick with the Broberg Thornton connection that has been winning tons of races, and they're drawn really well with the speed there. The 4 Reach the Circle would be another that I look at using in some of the exotics. What I like about him is that he's shown that he can sit off the pace a little bit if he has to. So is Spendaholic. So I will lean Spendaholic 6, 7, 4 as my horses to use in race number 1 at Delta Downs on Saturday. Second race at Delta. Let's go to the 2. Now You Rules. Put a line right through the turf race last time out in a race that sent this guy to the bench for a few months. It's the 2-back maiden breaking score that was really good, but the 2 races prior to that were not bad at all. And this is a horse who's actually run at Delta and has run pretty well, right? You can look back at some of the races at Delta and you can see one of them was on a wet fast track. I think you can put a line through that race, and that was a race that sent him to the bench for a few months. He's got a good 6.5 furlong race on the bottom of the page. He's going to be a little closer going a mile in here, and that's fine by me. Now You Rules in race number 2 we'll be using all over the place, and I'll be throwing in into my stable duel lineup. In the third race, maiden special weights, 5 furlongs in here. I like the 6, Sarah's Vision, who actually faced Open Company last time out, now back in with Louisiana Breds, and has gone a little longer at 5.5 last time out, so should have a little bit of a fitness edge. Now comes into the Alan Landry barn, too, a really, really nice barn, solid overall. And speaking of Alan Landry, blinkers on the 7, Bunky Song right next door would be another horse that I look at and think about including in some of the exotics. For me, 6, 7 in race number 3 at Delta Downs on Saturday. Moving along to race number 4. The 3, Madeline's Wild Max, is an ultra consistent horse in here. At 9-2, he always shows up. He has been proven at Delta Downs repeatedly. He's been proven at this trip. I'm a little slightly concerned about the 5 furlongs because I think he would be a little better at 5.5, 6, where he can relax a little more. He's not a speed demon, but it does seem like there is enough pace in here to set it up for him. So hopefully he settles, he makes his run, he should be mowing him down late. Madeline's Wild Max, 9-2 on the morning line, so a nice horse to include for a stable duel there. Not going to cost you a whole ton, not going to break your bank there with Madeline's Wild Max. We move along to race number 5. A couple horses that I'm looking at, maybe to throw in your lineups, maybe to include. We got a big bomb for you here. Blinkers On, so definitely a horse would be nice to include at Stable Duel because at 15-1, you are not spending anything off of your salary cap. I mean, it's absolutely like a freebie when you're only spending 15-1 shot and only spending $500 on Stable Duel. So I'm using the 9. Flashlight Security, the blinkers on in here. His last 2 starts at Evangeline were not bad at all. He's got a little bit of speed. He's actually shown that he can sit off and pass some horses too if he has to. Now he's cutting back from 2 races at a mile to 6.5 furlongs at a big price, enough pace to get involved. And cutting back to 6.5, I'm going to be using the 5 Reinsure on the drop-in class. He does look like the one to beat. 9 and 5 for me in all exotics. I'll throw the 9 in on some of my Stable Duel lineups there for only $500 at that big price. Moving along to race number 6, 5,000 non-winners of 4. I like Rosslare Harbor, who has been on the grass going a little longer. Actually, just the last time out, going a mile and 3/8. And you could tell that I think it was just too far for him. He had a slow start. He was last, but then he moved in between nicely. He moved up the inside. He was in the 2-path, in between horses. He got put in a tight spot. He tired, but he made a nice middle move up into contention. Now he's going a mile and a 16th. He comes back to the main track. He actually has a couple races on the main and a couple races at Delta that aren't that bad. That's why I would lean towards the 4 versus Gobbler, who actually outfinished him last time out. I think the cutting back and returning to the dirt will help Rosslare Harbor a little bit more. The number 4, Rosslare Harbor. Look at the February 27th race at Delta going 7.5 furlongs. That race wasn't bad. It was way out of it early because 7.5 furlongs, I think on the main, he would get outrun. At a mile and a 16th, he should be able to keep up with this group. The number 4, Rossler Harbor, I'll be using everywhere. And at 6-1, and Stable Duel will only cost me 5,000. The 9 is a horse who I think should be able to press Wrath, and that's why it could set up nicely for Rossler Harbor with the speed of Wrath inside, the speed of Bold Friends towards the outside. Race number 7, looking at Charzy Baby, coming off of a back-to-back victories. If this mare was drawn towards the outside, I would absolutely love her. The inside draw concerns me, but I think she has enough speed to break well and then settle. And that's what I'm hoping with Charzy Baby from the inside. Cool Spring also looks like she should be able to sit really, really nicely from out there. I think she's going to get bet down a little bit in this spot. Charzy Baby. Diva's Ransom is another longer price who, coming in from Mountaineer, I wouldn't talk you off. High Class Production would be the other that I use in here. So I'd have 1, 4, 7, and 9 in some of the exotics. I mean, a 20-1 shot in Stable Duel like the 9 Diva's Ransom would only cost you $250. The 1 horse at 6-1 would only be $5,000. The 4 at 9-2 would be $6,500. But this would not be a race that I think would break the bank for us with a lot of the horses that we look to. Now, Cool Spring at 12-1 would only cost you $750 in here. Many options that I don't think you have to spend up a whole ton in Stable Duel. If you're playing pick 4s, pick 5s, those are the horses who I'm using exotically with a slight lean towards the 1, just hoping that she can sit the kind of trip I think. The Delta Mile, I like the 4, 7, and 10. We talked about this one a little earlier with Andrew, 4, 7, and 10 as the 3 for me in the Delta Mile. And then to close things out, race number 9 at Delta Downs, couple that I'm looking at. The 4 Laughing Latinos is a live first-time starter who just showed that he has an affinity for Delta Downs with that bullet work of fastest of 68 on November the 20th. The 5-horse Sailing Jet, who just has some decent races in a field that does not have many. I think the 6 Geminator is a big price. The race that I really like is the October 15th one at Louisiana, going 7 furlongs. It's a 6.5 in here. Last couple races, you can toss the grass race. You can toss the mile going mile 70. And so I think that's why the return to a sprint, a 6.5, a little shorter here, will help Geminator quite a bit. And then the number 10, Liking It, is obvious favorite in here, the obvious one they'll have to beat. Those will be the 4 I'll use in exotics, but the 4 is a little interesting, first-time starter, the 6 Geminator, the 5 Sailing Jet, and the 10, Liking It. There is Saturday Delta Downs for you, and we're going to move on over to Del Mar Saturday in just a moment, but before we do, we have to talk about Sarah Candles website, SarahCandles.com, CERA Candles.com, promo code GINO will get you 10% off your purchase. And a lot of the times when you throw that promo code GINO in on there, they'll even bump your candle up, or they'll throw a little something extra in there because they know it's coming from the listeners. That's what G said. I know these people very, very well. I've known them my whole life. This is a local small business that loves candles. They wanted to create the perfect candle, and they were able to using the all-natural soy wax. It is healthier and better for you, and it is longer burning. These are no toxins, no carcinogens, no pollutants. These are handmade, affordable pricing, 20 plus different options, seasonal scents for every mood, for every time, 3 different sizes, a great holiday gift with the holiday season coming up. They give you instructions on how to keep your candle clean and how to ensure the perfect burn. SarahCandles.com. Promo code GINO gets you 10% off the purchase. Now we're going to head to Del Mar. Andrew joins me to talk about the 3 stakes at Del Mar. Following that conversation, I will go through my thoughts on the full card Del Mar for Saturday. So stakes race time, a little in-depth conversation with Andrew. 3-bagger of stakes races to talk about at Del Mar. And I got to say, I give Southern California a lot of crap recently because they have been deserving of a lot of crap over the last couple of years with the way they've handled things, with the short fields, with not a great racing product. But this weekend was really, really good at Del Mar. There are some big fields. There are some quality horses that are shipping in. And we're going to talk about the 3 stakes races at Del Mar for Saturday. A couple graded stakes races on the menu. We've got the Jimmy Durante in race 5, the grade 3 Jimmy Durante. In race 7, we've got the grade 2 Seabiscuit. In race 9, we've got the grade 1 Hollywood Derby, Andrew Champagne. Let's jump right into race number 5 with the Durante. So we've got the 2-year-old fillies here going long on the turf course. And just from a wagering standpoint, you look at the Chad Brown shipper, Fluffy Socks, she's going to take a ton of money as she ships in, and most recently racing at Belmont Park. Anytime a brown horse comes in, they're going to take money. You got Invincible Gal for Graham Motion, who's shipping in. She was in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. I'd imagine she's going to take some money. Pizzazz is a local. Javanica, who comes in for Owen Hardy, probably in that next tier also. So, you get past Fluffy Socks, even if you like her, she's not going to be, I don't think she's going to be like an even money favorite or anything in a big field like this. So you don't like her anywhere else you go, you'll get rewarded pretty nicely.
If anyone else trains Fluffy Socks, what kind of price is she?
7-2, 4-1. She's one of the 4-1 shots in probably, instead of everybody else being 6-1, they're probably all 4-1, right?
Yeah, I think Fluffy Socks is too slow. I think she's an underlay in this spot at her likely price. The more I'm looking at this race, the more I find myself asking the question, okay, where's the speed? There's nothing in the first half of the field to suggest any of the first 6 horses will want to aggressively go early. Then you get to number 7, Pizzazz. Pizzazz debuted here at Del Mar going 5 furlongs, ran a good second rallying from 8th. They stretch her out in the Surfer Girl, and she runs 3rd, stalking a pretty hot pace. She finally gets the race shape that she wants earlier this month in a maiden special weight. She gets to the lead. They didn't walk, but it also wasn't overly pressured, and she winds up winning, going away by 2 1/4 lengths. Now, what hurts her a little bit is the fact that Ivy League came back earlier today and did not run particularly well as the favorite in a maiden special weight at Del Mar. Having said that, Mike Smith sees fit to ride back for Richard Mandella, who has had an excellent meeting, and I think Pizzazz could very well lead this field gate to wire. The wild card is what happens if number 12 Magical Thought breaks like a bat out of hell, which she very well might. Having said that, I don't think Magical Thought wants any part of 2 turns, and the post position there is a killer. Pizzazz is my key horse from a wagering perspective. I'm against Fluffy Socks, and I've got a couple of other mid-range prices that I like underneath. Number 2,
and so like on
Sexy.
Sable Duel, Pizzazz is 6-1, right? So Sable Duel, that would be only 5,000, which is basically your average.
Exactly.
You need you're shooting for around 5,000 every race or so. You're going to pay up some and then you're going to go less, but that's the average if you're going 10 spots for your $50,000 salary cap all the way. So I completely agree with you on a lot of your Pizzazz stuff. I have Pizzazz picked second. She will be in all of my exotics. She's either on the lead, or if somebody ends up stretching out and sending maybe one of the horses that had sprinted early on, or somebody gets aggressive, she's fine with just sitting right behind them. She ran really well in stakes against Stakes Company in her second start, and she put it all together. Nice confidence building win. Now she steps up. I just hope we get that sort of a trip. Mikey sometimes will get a little. I saw one of the trips today that you had mentioned where he was a little.
No. Why'd you have to bring that up?
Where he went got a little too far back early on. So as long as she's aggressively handled and put in a nice spot, I think she's either going to be on the lead or sitting really, really close to it. I can't play any sort of pick 5 or any sort of multi-exotics without her on my ticket. One horse who I like. I'll use the 5 probably in most spots too. I think the 5 is going to be really close also. I think, coming out of that 7 furlong race at Woodbine, it's pretty easy to say, this horse ran well on the synthetic and now comes back to the grass where her only win was going long on the grass. And at any time Brat over here, where you have to imagine he basically probably had his pick of 10 horses in this field that he could choose from. He jumps aboard. You have to think he feels like this horse is really live and is going to run well. I think he gives her a nice ride. The horse who I'm going to maybe throw in on some spots is Quattrell. She was a little low on like numbers and figures in her maiden win, but I just love the way she did it. And she's so lightly raced. That was just her second start. Does she need to improve? Sure. But can she? Absolutely. She can take another step forward in here. And it's the kind of race where we're not scared of the favorite, we're looking at like that next tier of horses. If she improves, she's right there with them. Quattrell was a little slow away. She saved ground on the inside. She was like eighth, maybe 5 or 6 lengths off the pace. And then she moved outside and she kind of moved up into contention without being asked. And she made a big 4 wide sweeping move. It was visually very impressive. Tyler Bays, after heading to, the middle part of the country for a while and bouncing around there, Churchill, Ellis, different places, Oaklawn. Now he's back here in Southern California with Jack Carava taking his book, and he's actually he's been doing a really nice job, and he's been getting on some live horses. So give me the 9 here in a lot of spots. I'll be using Pizzazz, I'll be using Javanica, and then bottom of exotics, Fluffy Socks for me, but again, not on the win end. I'm fine in your pick 4s, pick 5s, however you're playing this race, Maltese, with trying to beat Fluffy Socks, especially in a stable duel situation where I like 3 other horses that would be way, way cheaper on your salary cap and would give you a ton of, opportunity later to key in on horses that are more expensive that you want to spend up on. So I think we're both, again, in this race sort of against the favorite.
Yeah, we are, and you actually used your 2 of the other 3 horses that I wanted to talk about. Quattrell, I actually picked 3rd in this race. When Jeff Mullins gets a turf horse going well, they tend to stay on the right track. That's a big specialty of his, and he does that very, very well. At that price, she's a must-use. You mentioned Javanica. The winner of the race last time out at Woodbine, Super Sensational, is very, very, very good. That's one of the better 2-year-old fillies in Canada. My co-host J.D. Fox can tell you all about Woodbine and the scene up there. And Super Sensational is a very fast horse. So running second to that one, there's no shame in that. The other one that I want to throw in is number 2, Plum Sexy from the Doug O'Neill barn. Doug O'Neill's horses tend to sometimes need a race or 2 to get going when they're on the grass. This one rallied from 6.5 lengths back, going 5.5 furlongs at Santa Anita to win by 3.5. A very impressive move that day. Hernandez sees fit to ride. Does she want to go 2 turns? She's by Munnings, but she's out of a Seeking the Gold mare. That's a stamina influence on the bottom, so it would not surprise me at all if Plum Sexy takes to this 2-turn mile route of ground. 6-1 on the morning line. Nice price to throw into the exotics, but Pizzazz is my key horse. I think she's got everything it takes to lead him from gate to wire. Just hope Mike Smith has his aggressive pants on for this one. And by the way, you mentioned the pick 5. The late pick 5 includes 3 graded stakes races. There are big fields, and if you're right, you're going to get paid.
Let's move along to the next stakes race on the card. That's going to be race number 7, which is the Sea Biscuit Handicap. And we've got a field going a mile in the 16th. This is a grade 2 here. And just from a who's the headliner perspective, I think Flavius is a really nice horse. And on his best, he's the best horse in this race. The issue with Flavius is that he did not get a great post in here. He got post 12. He'll probably be able to settle, but this horse who's had some bad luck, who's had some trouble, and I could smell a trip like that here again. I mean, if he gets a smooth trip, he's going to win this race. And I just from what they've done, he's done much more than most in this field, and he's been competing with really nice horses, but I don't know. I mean, I like a couple others a little bit more than him. I think One Bad Boy, maybe a little bit interesting, 3rd start off that very, very long layoff. He's got some speed. He can sit off a little bit too. As from a long shot perspective, maybe the 2 Camino del Paraíso, I think it is just honest. I don't know how good he is if he can win, but he's kept company with graded stakes types. And I don't know after Flavius if this is a really, really deep graded stakes field. Where do you go in the 7th, Andrew?
Well, we agree in that we both think Flavius is vulnerable. We've done enough segments to where you know that I will toss horses who have running lines that are like this. Blocked upper, 5 path, check tight wire, 4 wide, awkward start. That's Flavius's last 5 starts. Maybe he's just more talented than everyone else in this field. Horses like that from either far inside or far outside posts Not at 5-2 on the morning line. I think that's an underlay, and I will gladly take shots against. My top selection is the other Chad Brown runner in here, number 3, Spirit Animal. Spirit Animal came off of a very long layoff earlier this year at Belmont and was entered for a $50,000 claiming tag. Won impressively at 8-5, was claimed. The claim was voided. Came back in an optional claimer, had a hard luck second in what turned out to be a pretty classy little race 2-back, then goes back to Belmont, wins by almost 3 lengths. The third place finisher, 3 Technique, is a very, very nice horse. Won with a 94 Beyer speed figure, goes to 2 turns. I don't think that's going to hurt him here. 8-1 on the morning line seems way too high for this barn, which does not ship in for the frequent flyer miles. I think Spirit Animal has a big shot. And the other big price that I think has a big shot is the horse that won this race last year. That's number 9, Next Shares. Next Shares needs a very particular set of circumstances in order to be competitive. He is a deep closer and gets a race with several horses that need to be on or near the lead. I would really like number 7 Blitzkrieg or number 10 One Bad Boy if the other didn't show up. Having said that, they both show up. They're both going to need the lead. They're both going to go, I think, very, very quickly. And there are some other horses in here that may press the pace. You take a look at a horse like number 8, Another Twist of Fate. He's not going to be far off of it. And I wouldn't be shocked if he's actually up very close to those two early on, simply to get him more involved. The faster they go early, the better Next Year's chances figure to be. You know he likes this turf course. Again, won this race last year over a field that was probably similar in quality. He's been tackling horses like United, War of Will, Raging Bull, Without Parole, River Boyne, Zulu Alpha when that one was going really, really well. 12-1 is a really nice price on that one, I think. 3 and 9 will be my 2 key horses. I think this race sets up for a bigger price.
Yeah, I've got this is a race I don't have as strong of opinion because of the Flavius point. It's like, just like you said, he gets himself into trouble and now he's to the outside. It just smells like him getting in trouble again. But honestly, if he was in the middle of the field and closer towards the inside, I would probably like him a lot more. So as long as he works out a trip, I can't just dismiss him because he does feel like he's better than most of these. I'm hoping One Bad Boy sits off Blitzkrieg with Pratt, so I'm hoping that's the trip, and maybe One Bad Boy can kind of fall into it. But the 3 Spirit Animal I had in like the 3rd and the 4th spot, and I might throw Camino del Paraiso in there too. So yeah, in a race where I don't love the favorite, I don't like dislike him as much. I'll use him and then a couple other prices along the way, and hopefully we can spice something up here as we move to the final stakes race on the Del Mar card. And it's cool. I love when they do this, when they have it as the closeout race too. It just it's something that Los Alamitos does a lot, and some tracks do, where they have a big stakes as your final race on the card. And so we get that on Saturday with the Grade 1 Hollywood Derby going as race number 9. And this is another really fun race, Andrew, from a handicapping standpoint, and I have to do it, Andrew. This is a horse who I've liked for a while. I'm going to go right back, and I'm going to use him again. I gave this horse out as a horse that I played in my pick 4 on April the 11th on an episode of Champagne and it was May the 2nd on an episode of Champagne and JD that we did previewing the Arkansas Derby. Tyshawn, who I've always liked. He's so capable of a big race here and there. He's just a little bit inconsistent, and that's what ends up getting built into his price now. He's probably going to be in the 8 to 12-1 range or so. In his last start, he was coming off a couple-month break. He actually had a good start. He broke right on top, and then he settled 3rd just behind, and he was a little bit flat late. I think he's just going to be a little better, that race under his belt. And he's got that style where he's going to put himself into a good spot. He's going to be sitting. Valdivia, who has not had a great start to the meet, is one of the better and more underrated turf riders out there. This is a situation that I love Jose Valdivia Jr. He's got a horse who's got a little bit of speed. He can try to harness it and sit just behind. So I'm using him in a lot of spots. And then I think the Chad Brown horses in here, to me, they do feel I love Gufo just as a horse in general. I don't love his post, but with his running style as a stone cold closer, I think he might just be able to take back and make one late run. He only didn't beat Domestic Spending because Domestic Spending got a perfect trip back in August. I actually think Gufo is a little bit better. I'll use Domestic Spending along with them. I think those are the three for me. I've got 4, 13, and 8.
Yeah, I think the New York contingent has this field over a barrel.
Mm-hmm.
Domestic Spending, in hindsight, never should have been 7-1 in the Saratoga Derby back in August. Got away at 7-1. And somebody wrote a recap. It might have been one of the Clancy's or Tom Law, where the first quote from Chad Brown was, "Chad Brown at 7-1 in a stakes race on turf at Saratoga? Really?" And looking back on it, there's no reason that horse should have been 7-1. Domestic Spending is 5-1 on the morning line. I think he'll get bet down a little bit. And if he does, that makes him a bargain in Stable Duel. So that's something to keep an eye on. He's not going to cost you an arm and a leg. Decorated Invader hasn't stepped forward quite like I think a lot of people thought he would. He is still a very nice horse. Mm-hmm. I'm concerned that this might be a little too far for him.
Yeah, I'm sort of against him in here.
I'm concerned that he didn't get up to win the Hill Prince. I don't care what kind of pace was set. He was 2-5 in a 7-horse field. He was supposed to win that day and just didn't. Maybe he bounced a little bit in the Saratoga Derby off of a couple of decent races in grade 2 events, but still, I think earlier this year was the time for Decorated Invader.
Yep.
If I'm wrong and he winds up being a very good 4-year-old, I think that's great for racing. Really cool pedigree by declaration of war out of an Arch mare, so that's stamina all around. Gufo is a very talented racehorse that's done nothing wrong. 5 wins and 7 starts with a second and a third. Boy, that 13 hole, though, that's not going to make things easy. Flavian Pratt, one of the top turf riders, not just in California, but in the United States, signs on for this one. I think he's got a big shot as well. For me, it's 8 with 10 and 13. If I was going to use any of the California-based horses, I might throw in a flyer on number 7 Strong Constitution at 20-1. Certainly needs to step forward, but is another that just seems to run the same kind of race every time out. Was up close to a very strong pace last time out in the Let It Ride. This is a stronger group, but he's shown he has a fair amount of early speed, and maybe Abel Cedillo gets him in a really nice spot, either on the lead or just off of it. 20-1, and may very well be a horse you want to throw in your second, third, or fourth spots if you're playing vertical exotics. But for me, Domestic Spending hits me as the horse to beat. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes off favored in the Hollywood Derby.
Andrew Champagne helping me out, pulling triple duty today with some stakes races from Delta, Churchill, and Del Mar. Andrew, let all the folks know out there, where can we follow you along on social media, and what do you have coming up?
Sure. Twitter is at Andrew Champagne. I'll be doing a lot of fun stuff there. I've been doing daily things for Racing Picks, which I'm really excited about. Happy to be contributing for them on a daily basis. Usually I'll do a pick 4 sequence. I might do spot plays. I try to mix it up with different tracks from around the country just to give everybody some exposure, because there are a lot of tracks that are doing some great work in some really challenging circumstances. Website is andrewchampagne.com. If you want to follow me on Stable Duel, I am 128 winners, 128 space winners, and I'm a pretty active player over there. It's a fun way to get involved. It's a fun complement to standard wagering. Really excited that I was able to do so well a couple of days ago, and hopefully we can get the momentum, keep staying in that direction.
The contest on Saturday at Stable Duel for Del Mar is a $10,000 invitational. It's a $100 entry. There is going to be big money up for grabs, because let's be honest, what a contest like this does too, Andrew, is the $100 entry contest on Stable Duel don't get as many players. That's a lot of money for a lot of people to just that may be more interested in playing in a lot of the $5s and $10 and $20. And there is a smaller contest. There is another one for the smaller players. I think it's just a $5 entry also on Saturday. But the big one, if you want to play for the big pool and the big prize, $10,000 in prizes and a $100 entry. So we will be involved there. Andrew, thank you so much, buddy. I appreciate you helping me out last minute. I wanted to do sort of another just a bonus little Thanksgiving show for everybody to get all the Saturday racing in, and appreciate you helping out with all 3 different tracks, man. Good luck this weekend.
Thank you very much. One quick thing before I sign off.
Please do.
I'm not paid by Stable Duel. I'm not an influencer. It's not anything that I get paid to do. But I wanted to give them a shout out because crisis communications is hard. There's not a lot of people that are good at that. They had some issues earlier this week with their app when they rolled something out. A lot of people around horse racing, by the way, had a lot of issues earlier in the week. Tampa Bay Downs was hand timing races. Delta had issues with their graphics. Fairgrounds had issues with their sound on a couple of feeds. So just a lot of whole voodoo type things going on. And Stable Duel wound up doing right by their customers. They canceled contests. They refunded entries. And as a customer, all I want is somebody that respects the investment I've made in their product and provides transparency. They did that in a situation that could not have been easy for anybody. So shout out to them for doing the right thing. If you're out there and you're a marketing person, take note. That's how you do it.
Absolutely. Transparency is the key. Just like you said, bad things, there's going to be crappy situations anywhere you work, no matter what. Just let us know what's happening. We don't want to feel like we're getting robbed in any situation. And they did exactly what you should do. Refund everybody. Let them know, hey, sorry, we had an update. Things just didn't work out, but we had another contest later if you want to get involved, and everybody's got their money back. Apologies there. So a very great job on all ends. And I hope we do a great job this weekend with
fingers crossed
with the stakes races. Andrew, buddy, you have a great one. We'll talk soon.
Thanks. You too, buddy.
Don't go anywhere, folks. Plenty more on That's What G Said. Thanks to Andrew for helping us out with Del Mar Stakes races. Remember that huge Stable Duel $10,000 invitational. So Stable Duel, what is Stable Duel? Daily horse racing contest. So if you're betting the races a lot, you're going to like these contests. You're not playing against a billion other people either. Usually the entries are in the hundreds. Andrew had mentioned in the big contest, the free one the other day, there were about 800 entries. But in a paid contest like this for $100, there won't be that many. You have a legitimate shot to win big money in here, $10,000 in prizes. So it pays out more than just the winner. Stable Duel. Download the app. You're going to be building a lineup, and you have to pick 10 horses throughout the card. And any races that you want, but you get points when horses finish first, second, third, fourth, or fifth. So the goal is to try to have the winner of as many races as possible. If there are 10 races, what I always do is I always pick one horse per race because I want to give myself the opportunity to get the max points possible. So the way it's set up is it's based on a salary cap where you have $50,000 to spend amongst 10 races, and all the horses are priced based on their morning line. So if a horse, and they're based on the odds that they are. So the more expensive they are, the more money they're going to take off of your salary cap. The middle type horses, a 5-to-1 shot cost you $6,000. A 6-to-1 shot cost you $5,000. So that's like the middle part right there. And when you're thinking about a salary cap, you got to fill 10 spots with $50,000. So $5,000 is your average all the way down. That's sort of what you're looking at. If you have ever any questions about Stable Duel, please shoot me a message. I'd love to help you out. I've been playing it from day one. It is so much fun. It's just, if you've ever played like daily fantasy type stuff, it's very similar. But these are daily contests for horse racing, and just a really cool wrinkle and something a little bit different that we don't really have a whole ton of in horse racing. Let's start with race number 1, Del Mar, Saturday. Mile and 3/8 right off the bat. I like the 4, Irish Heatwave. Look at his last 2 starts, okay? He's a Calbred. This is not the easiest spot in the world, so he's going to have to step up off of his last couple. But he's had trouble in both of those starts. He had absolutely nowhere to go in either one of them. He was actually favored last time out when he was close up. He was saving ground. He got shuffled on the inside. He was just loaded. Things got tight, and he had to wait. Never got an opportunity to really stretch the legs. The number 4, Irish Heatwave, will be using in all of the exotics, and definitely a stable dual horse for me. In the opener, Master of Hounds, second time North America, would be another that I give a look to. And Marquis Water, who I've I've been a fan of, and he had the long layoff to deal with. Now is in a newborn. He got the comeback race out of the way. Slight drop in class. Marquis Water should run a lot better in this one too. That's the opener at Del Mar on Saturday. As we move along to race number 2, a couple in here I'm going to look at. This maiden 32 claimer, the Roan Ranger. The dam of this one was a 4-time winner, 6 siblings to race, and 5 multiple winners. A little bit of a sneaky good pedigree for the Roan Ranger, and he's shown a little ability in the mornings also. I'll use him on some tickets. The short rib is actually my top selection. The dam won a maiden special weight race in her only start over at Aqueduct. The lone sibling of this one was a stakes place, just one victory, but a stakes place runner. The 3 short rib we're using everywhere. Love My Jimmy with the experience. Comes in from Keeneland. Actually debuted over at Belterra and didn't run poorly in either start. Now adds the blinks. Turns back in distance slightly from 6 to 5 furlongs. Love My Jimmy will be hard to leave out of exotics. I do like the number 8, Mo C. Cal in race number 3. Who's going to go with Mo C. Cal early? This mare looks like the one to catch. She's going to go second start off the bench. She's going back to the turf. She came off of a long layoff. She didn't run from November 17th of 2019 to November 8th of 2020, basically a full year. She came back off that year-long layoff and won nicely, sitting off the pace a little bit. She beat a couple of good ones, too, in Warren Showtime and Just Graze Me. And now she's in a race where she's probably the speed. I think she's just going to get sent, and they will have to play Come and Catch Me with Mo C. Cal, the number 8. I'll be using in all of my exotics. I'll be making a win wager on Mo C. Cal, if we get anything over like 5-2 or so. The 4th race, moving along at Del Mar, maiden special weights. The 7 Parnelli, no doubt the one to beat, who was just defeated by a neck in the last 2. All 3 starts, he finished second. He's got outside speed. He's probably the quickest. What concerns me, though, is that number 2, North Pole, is going to be close up stretching out from sprint races. Heliochrome is very quick. Enough Nonsense is going to be close up stretching out. And then you got editor-in-chief, a Bob Baffert first-time starter, who's generally quick. Although this one doesn't seem like he's shown a ton of speed in the mornings, and Bafferts don't generally... He doesn't do this with a lot of horses, just go long immediately. I think All About the Money is going to get a really good trip in here. If 4 or 5 others all want to be forwardly placed, he's the only one that takes back, settles, and comes running late. Give me the number 5, All About the Money. We'll use along with Parnelli in all of the exotics, early pick 5s, all that kind of stuff, 5-7. The Jimmy Durante, spoke about this race with Andrew a little bit. Quattrell, I like. Pizzazz, I like. Javanica, I like. Those are the 3 for me. I would have Fluffy Socks a little bit more of an under. So I'm 9, 7, 5, 8 in race number 5. As we move along to race number 6, 16 non-2s. Honestly, I hate this race. I spent way more time than I wanted to trying to get a feel for the race, and I just kept coming back to the inside 3 horses. I really couldn't get to anyone else but maybe Final Rose trying to send hard and steal the race. Those aren't the horses from the inside aren't horses I generally love to play in this type of a spot, right? You've got Connection, who is continuing to drop down again from 30 to now 16. There's a horse they paid $260,000 for. You've got King Parker, who's 1 for 17 and just minor award after minor award. And you got Great Power, who debuted against Maiden Specials and just has to continue to fall down the class ladder now. So I don't love the profile of any of them. I just couldn't get to anybody else in this race to get really excited about. So for me, the 3 inside horses and Final Rose, if you're looking to play some sort of multi-exotics in race number 6. The 7th race, spoke about that one with Andrew. Probably the race that I have like the least strong opinion about of maybe all the races this weekend that we looked at. I had 10, 12, 2, 3 to use in some of the multi-exotics there with, Flavius being no doubt the one to beat, but with a horse who loves to get into trouble a lot of the time, can he get the clean trip from out there? We go from a race where I don't really like anyone to a race where I really like Agamemnon. Agamemnon has raced 4 times. He won his career debut, and then in his second start he tried turf, a race you can put a line right through. In his third career start, he came off of a little bit of a layoff. He didn't race from June 20th to October the 9th, so I think he needed that race a little bit, and it was okay. He was behind a horse named Handsome Cat. He didn't have the quickest start, and he sort of just ran around the track. Much different story in November, though. He sat really nicely from the outside. He was like 4th, 5th, just 2 lengths off or so. He was too deep. He was in between horses. He made a big 3-wide move. He took the lead. He opened up a length. And I watched the race 3 or 4 times. I still think he won. It was as bad of a bob losing by a nose as you will see. I mean, I still think he won. Going back and looking at that race. Now you cut back a little bit in here. And let's look to the outside in this field. So we know Curry's going to go. Big speed. Perfect Fanny. Going to be forwardly placed in there. Colt Fiction. Going to be forwardly placed in there. Abusive Gary. Going to be forwardly placed in here. I'll use a little under. I think Abusive Gary can sit. Not a great name for a horse there, though. Huh? And I love Agamemnon. Anything over 5-2, I'll make a win wager. This would be the type of horse that I single in late exotics and really gives you the opportunity to spread out around. I feel like he's going to get a perfect trip settling down on the inside. I'm hoping he's sitting exactly like he was last time out. The exact type of trip that he had when he won and broke his maiden in his debut. Sitting 3-4 lengths off at the most, maybe 4th in here. Agamemnon. To close it out, it's the Hollywood Derby. This is the race that we talked about, another one that we talked about with Andrew. I mentioned Tyshawn, Domestic Spending, and Gufo as my 3 that I will be using in all of the exotics. Don't forget about that big, big day, folks. Saturday, Stable Duel. You got contest at Del Mar and at Delta for big money. If you have any questions about those, please let me know. Would love to help you out. Before we get into just some quick thoughts on our best bets for NFL Sunday, got to let you know about Thrive Fantasy, the daily fantasy sports app that is built around prop betting. And when you use the promo code GINO, so let's say you've never played Thrive Fantasy, right? You're just hearing about it right now. If you go right now, download the app, use the promo code GINO, and then make a deposit. So if you make a deposit of $20, they'll give you an instant $20 credit right back into your account. You turn your 20 into 40. If you make a deposit of $50, instant 50 right back in your account. So anything from 20 to 50, you get an instant bonus right in there. It'll double up whatever you put in, 20, 30, 40, 50, up to 50. Might as well 50, right? If it's going to max you at 50, max you at 50, get that extra 50. Now you can play in one of the contests. They have NFL, NBA, baseball, golf, League of Legends contest. Big contest, head-to-heads, free rolls, anything from $1 to $1,000. NFL Thursday, Sunday, Monday contest, but the big ones they have are on NFL Sundays. Mainly their major contests are something like this. It's a $25 entry with $12,500 in prizes. They have usually capped at around 500 entries or so. So you're not playing against millions of other people. You're playing against 500. You have a legitimate opportunity to win the first place prize of $2,750. It pays out to the top 130 too, so you're not just winning money if you're the lone winner here. If you have a good lineup and it doesn't win, but you're a top 5, top 10, you're going to be getting really nicely paid. You'll be picking 10 out of the 20 prop options, and that's how you build your lineup. You're going to go over or under on that prop, over or under on that prop, and you pick whichever props you want. That's your lineup, and that's how you play Thrive Fantasy. If you are someone who bets games, who bets props, who plays fantasy football or any fantasy sports, you will absolutely love this because you're going to be able to find some line differences from the places that you wager on versus this app, and you will really, really like getting involved. Thrive Fantasy. Don't forget about that promo code GINO because it gets you that nice bonus and it puts a few bucks back in my pocket. Helps me out with the sponsors there. NFL Week 12. So if you're looking for full analysis for all of the Week 12 games, on the previous episode of That's What G Said, I went over all the games. We even talked about the Thursday games with Darren, and we talked about the Sunday games myself following that. So thoughts on all of NFL Week 12. I'm going to give you my plays now. Keep in mind that Baltimore-Pittsburgh game has now been moved to Tuesday. which, okay, a little bit of a tangent here. That sucks. It bothers me, and I talked about this earlier in the year when it happened with Tennessee. Baltimore should have had a forfeit. They should have. Because what ends up happening now, Baltimore screws Pittsburgh because now Pittsburgh, instead of playing on Thursday or Sunday, Pittsburgh has to play on Tuesday, and there's going to be a domino effect of all of the schedule now. Other teams get their games moved all around. That is not fair to them. This happened to the Buffalo Bills earlier in the year, and that wasn't cool. Buffalo lost the 2 games following when their schedule got all screwed up because Tennessee went out and was practicing on a field and they were not following protocol. They should have lost that game, and the same thing should have just happened to Baltimore. It's not cool when everybody else is playing by the rules and the 1 or 2 teams that don't really get penalized. They should have been forced to lose because now every other team that's getting their schedule changed around is all screwed up because of Baltimore. So there's my tangent. Baltimore, Pittsburgh is going to be on Tuesday. I mean, I don't mind. Hey, Tuesday football, that's cool, right? Just, it's not. And if it's hard because this is a virus, right? People are going to catch it. It's hard to, you're going to penalize them because they got it. Well, no, I'm not penalizing them because they got it. I'm penalizing them because they didn't follow protocols. Apparently, there was an issue with one of the coaches who spread it all around. And with Tennessee, when they were out practicing, when they weren't supposed to, that was against protocol. So that's something that just frustrates me. Everybody else shouldn't be penalized when 1 or 2 teams screw up. Games we're looking at this week, NFL Week 12. If you can get the Colts at -3 anywhere against the Titans, we're taking it. Love the Colts. The Colts are much better than this Titans team who week in and week out sort of gets lucky. They're very well coached, the Titans, but the Colts are very well coached also. The Titans don't have the type of defense to put the pressure on Phillip Rivers and on the Colts. This is a type of team that he can sit back and pick them apart. And their defense, their secondary, is absolutely atrocious. The Colts at -3 anywhere you take it, but don't take it at 3.5. You got to get the -3. The Patriots was a game I liked a little earlier. I was able to get it at 2.5 earlier in the week. This number is down in a lot of spots. I got it at 2.5, and I was hoping it would float up to 3, and I don't know if it will. I like them. I think they're going to win the game, personally, and I may play a little money line on them. I was waiting for 3, but I think it's heading the other way. It's down to 2, 1.5 in some spots, as the Cardinals have favorite over the Patriots on the road. Give me the Pats money line there. Atlanta Falcons, home, +3 against the Raiders. The Raiders coming off that tough loss to Kansas City on Sunday Night Football. We all saw them. Now they got to go travel across the country and play Atlanta. An Atlanta team that can score. The Raiders do not have a very good defense. Are the Raiders going to score some points in this game? Sure. But if they're a little flat, off of the travel, early game, off of a tough emotional loss against the division opponent where you felt like you were going to win that game, you played great all the way throughout, bad spot for the Raiders here. Atlanta +3 versus the Raiders. 49ers, this number has moved up to where we like it now. 49ers are +7.5 against the Rams. They're coming off their bye. They're getting healthier. They're going to have at least a couple of their big skill position players back this weekend. And the Rams are riding high off of their recent good success. But the 49ers are the type of team that know them well. They've always played well against Goff. They can put a little bit of pressure on him. I think this is going to be a much closer game. I wouldn't be shocked if the 49ers win this game. Obviously, I'm rooting for the Rams as a Rams fan, but I'm rooting for my money more than anything with the 49ers plus the 7.5 in here. I think this is a close game that the Rams win. Tampa +3.5 against the Chiefs is my final play of the week. This is just the age-old Tampa looked bad, but remember, they didn't look that bad. Tampa had the opportunity to win the game. They were driving. They were on their own 40-yard line when they threw an interception. All they would have needed was a field goal to tie that game against the Rams, and the Rams are a solid team. So Tampa generally doesn't play bad games back to back to back. Their defense is going to be able to slow down Kansas City a little bit. And offensively, they're going to be able to score on Kansas City's mediocre defense. I think this is a good matchup and a very good spot for Tampa coming off of their loss, and maybe Kansas City riding high off of their win. They're, I don't want to say overlooking Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Bucks, but maybe they don't come into this game with as much vim and vigor because of the big divisional victory they just had over the Raiders. So games I'm looking at, Colts -3, Pats money line. I mean, you probably won't find this at -3 anywhere, or at +3 anywhere. You can probably, the best you can get is +2, +1.5. So look for the best Pats line that you can get. Atlanta +3, 49ers +7.5, and Tampa +3.5. That is NFL Week 12 on That's What G Said, and that's going to do it for us here on this episode. Thanks to Andrew for coming on and talking some racing with us. Hopefully you enjoyed all of the horse racing analysis from the 3 different racetracks. Good luck this weekend, and good luck NFL Sunday. We'll be back next week and with another episode of That's What G Said. Have a nice Thanksgiving weekend, everyone.